What's up, nerds? Welcome back to the channel. We've been working on a review for you guys for the past couple of months now. We have had this Bixby K1 outboard kit for a while. I can't remember specifically when we got it. I feel like it was back in February, March. We did a little first look unboxing. And in that video, we pointed out like, hey, this company has sent us this product to try out. We're gonna give you guys our honest review after we're able to really put it through a rigorous testing phase, which has finally been completed. And boy, was it rigorous. I'm gonna take you through it and I'll show you clips along the way, but we're gonna walk through today how we really feel about the Bixby K1. And hopefully by the end of this video, you can determine if this is the right fit for you. So first off, I want to point out there's a whole bunch of different options when it comes to motorization of a kayak. You've got options like GPS pinpoint bow mounted kits like the XI3 from Motor Guide, which runs about $13.49 with none of the stuff that you need to rig it up. You've got the Newport motors. They got the new NK180 Pro, which is pretty slick. We just picked that up for our Crescent Light Tackle 2, and we'll be doing a full review on that one after we beat the tar out of it by around July. I would say like mid to late summer, we can probably get that one out. They got the NK300, they have outboard motors. Torqeedo is another great company that does a similar thing. Those are more meant to be stern mounted. So they're off the rear of the boat. They're a little bit heavier, a little bit more expensive. They typically either run on a larger proprietary battery or you can rig it up to a 12, 24, 36 volt battery of your own or of that brand's making. All in all, you're gonna end up spending a lot more money. There's also, of course, the old school, I got one right here. You could just grab an old Minn Kota Motor Guide, pick your brand, Amazon brand of choice for under 300 bucks, and you could just transom mount it. You could make your own mount behind the seat. I've seen a lot of times. They take like a board that goes right behind the kayak seat. You can rig that up. Typically, these will just wire up to any old 12 volt battery, so it's an option. And then I've also seen guys like take the top of this off, rig a steering triangle, and then create some really cool looking DIY contraption where they rig this off of the stern of the boat, off the back. So I've seen a lot of different options out there. So with a really good guide, you could DIY your own stern mount motor. We're not gonna talk about that here. I wanna just make sure you guys know, you're aware of the possibility of making your own. And of course, that's true for any hobby. There's gonna be pre-made stuff that you're gonna pay a premium for, kind of like the stuff we're talking about today. And there's gonna be DIY stuff that you can like, you know, do at your own risk. And as long as you have a really good guide, you can probably pull it off, right? I'm not knocking that at all. I think it's a great option if you want to go that route. That said, we're kind of living in two different worlds. Like there's going to be the folks who would rather just not spend the time, learn all that stuff or follow the instructions and like, you know, piece this thing together themselves. And there's going to be the people who get joy out of doing it that way. So, you know, decide what camp you're in and respond in comments accordingly, right? And let's all be friends here. So let's get into it today. We've got the Bixby K1. Now the Bixby K1, I want to point out, is very different, as I've mentioned, from doing the DIY, from doing the Newport, from doing the Torqeedo, from having the old school transom mount. It is a very different option. It's lighter. It does have a proprietary battery. Some people are going to knock it for that. We'll get to it in a little bit. And it's honestly one of the easiest, if not the easiest, motor option to rig to any kayak out there. And that's not me just saying that. Go check out their website. They've got a instructional video for literally everything they sell, and they have a way to rig this to any kayak you could pick up. And not just kayaks, but SUPs and like smaller boats or John boats even. Like they have an option for this for everything, which is really nice to see, considering there are definitely motor brands out there where you have to kind of like piece your mounting kit together. For example, with the Crescent Light Tackle 2, we had to buy a mount from Crescent in order to put the Newport on it. So you're buying from two different places. Not that it's a huge deal, it's just a minor inconvenience. I get it, but it's something to point out nonetheless. Okay, so they do sell the outboard motor separately, I wanna point out. The batteries you can buy separately. They've got a little mini power battery bank that's pretty cool now. But what do you get if you get the K1 kit? If you get the K1 kit, what you're getting is you get your K1 motor, you get your battery, you get your kill switch magnet set up, and then you get this remote. So it's up speed, down speed, and stop. It has 3 reverse speeds and I believe it was 10 forward thrust speeds, so you can max this thing out. We were able to top out this thing at a few different speeds. We got closer to 6 miles an hour on Paul's Old Town 106 pedal when he was pedaling. Now without pedaling, it was going anywhere from 4.5 to around 5.5 miles an hour, depending on if we were in current or wind or not. We also rigged this up with this rudder setup, which is also new from Bixby as an option, to my Old Town Big Water 132. Now it's a non-pedal kayak, so there wasn't extra resistance. It's a little bit narrower than the Sportsman 106 pedal. So we're able to get a little more speed out of that. I was pushing more 5.5 on average, even on windy days. So I was able to get that thing kind of moving. So before we get through that, I'm gonna walk you through like all the stuff we kind of learned about this along the way and show you clips of us going through this. Here's how I'm gonna be rating this today. Came up with like 7 different categories I wanted to rate this thing on out of 10, right? So the first thing we're gonna look at is cost. Then we're gonna look at output in terms of thrust. We're gonna look at durability, which is obviously important with any motor. Ease of rigging. How easy is this to get set up on any boat? How it looks overall once it's installed, customer service from the company themselves, and then one I think is really important when it comes to any of these products is gonna be battery life. So we'll go through all of those. And keep in mind there's 2 different batteries, technically 3 because there's a power bank too, that you can get from Bixby. We are using the basic option, which is this guy right here. So it is proprietary. And again, like I said, I know some people are gonna knock it for that, but we'll talk about it later. First things first, let's talk about the cost. So you guys can look it up on Google yourself. That is free, but here's the price. I'll do it for you. $12.99 for the basic kit. That's the one we have. $15.99 for that upgraded battery. So that's the Pro outboard kit. Based on our performance, you could do either. It's basically like, do you want to go more than 1 day without charging and or have the potential for higher power output with that? Do you want to spend $300 more on that or not? So for $12.99, is this thing worth it? That's what we'll determine by the end of this video, hopefully after you were watching this with me. When it comes to cost, I give this thing a 6.5 or maybe even a 7 out of 10. I think overall it's reasonably priced when you compare it to other motor options out there. Now, when you think about output and battery life and options for batteries, that's where it gets knocked on points. Because this is a proprietary battery, you gotta get a battery through them. If that battery dies, you gotta get another one through them. I get it. Torqeedo also does a proprietary battery, although I think they were looking at changing that up. Newport does and doesn't. They actually sell a 24 and a 36 volt option, and I believe a 12 volt that's like lead acid though, it's not lithium. But those are Bluetooth batteries, so you can like check the health of your battery on your phone, and you could get your own other branded 24, 36 volt or 12 volt battery and operate your Newport setup. So that's kind of a plus for them. With these guys, it is what it is. I also think this battery is really light compared to other batteries you could get and really well made. And it also is really easy to tell how charged it is because it has a little LED display right there for you. Talk about battery life in a minute. On the spectrum of motors available to you, DIY rigging and transom mount motors are gonna be like your cheapest option. Hands down, nobody's gonna beat that. These electric motor setups like Torqeedo, Newport, and Bixby are going to be more expensive. Bixby lives in the middle of the spectrum though. From $12.99 to $15.99 at like their best option that you can get. They are cheaper than going with Newport, going with Torqeedo, and they kind of represent a different kayak motor market. We look at this motor as more modular. It's easily adaptable to any boat you got. If you had 3 kayaks and you wanted to buy 1 motor, this would be a great option for that because it's easy in 10 minutes to take it from one boat to the next. Whereas taking a Newport or a Torqeedo type motor or even a transom mount sometimes from one boat to the next can be a little bit more of a pain in the butt. So overall cost wise, again, we got to knock it a little bit just because obviously versus DIY transom mounts, all that stuff, it's going to be more expensive. I'm gonna give it a 7. 7 out of 10. I still think it's a great value. Okay, so let's roll some clips. I want to show you a little bit of the install, just some takeaways that we got from putting this on the setup that Paul has and from putting it on the setup that I have. A couple things I want to point out as you guys are watching us install this here. Some kayaks just don't have the 4-bolt power pull system pattern on the back of the boat. Or in the case of the 106 from Old Town, it's offset on an angle, which is a big pain in the butt. So you got to do some funky stuff with your setup there. It is still a really good looking setup and it was super easy to install. It took 4 bolts. A couple things we knocked it for. As you guys can see, the bolts are super long, which is just, I guess, more annoying. Like it's at the back of your boat, so it's not like it's gonna be in the way, but I wish there was an option to make those shorter or have shorter bolts potentially that are more flush with the boat or closer to the actual hull of the boat. Just more of an annoying thing. I think they could improve the setup. You can see this blue anodized aluminum setup that they use is impressive looking. It looks looks really good. Paul's boat is blue, so it goes really well with it, I think. You can go to companies like Navarre Fishing. Navarre does a lot of 3D printed and customized outfit rigging option type stuff for Old Town specifically, and some Hobie products as well. And you could get an offset plate that fixes that, so instead of going to the angle, it's going straight back. So it's something I would recommend. We ended up getting the wrong plate from them, and we didn't feel like reordering it, so that's why we just did it the way we did it there, as you can see. As far as Paul's rigging option, it was like a 9 out of 10 ease of setup. Super simple. Just pop that little thing back there and you are good to go. He steers with his rudder. He didn't need to rig any steering lines. That said, something I want to point out is there are like 3 or 4 different steering options. You can get a transom handle from Bixby that makes it super easy to just steer with your hand. You can get hand steering. You can just rudder steer with a fixed mounted motor like you saw on Paul's setup, and that works fine. And then you can rudder steer with your feet, which is another great option, but that'll be the most complex install. So I would say overall though, every kit that they sell has everything you need. So it's easily a 9 out of 10, and they have some of the best instructional videos on the internet when it comes to products like this. Similar products I've seen in the kayak market either have 0 instruction. They'll send you the product. It has no paper instruction, no internet instruction. If they do have a YouTube video, it's from 10 years ago, and some kid that started a YouTube channel like this dork filmed it, and it's all grainy with a GoPro or something. I've seen some rough stuff. Or companies will have like one good install video, and then they're lacking install videos for everything else. The cool thing about this company right here that we liked, they had like a high resolution instructional video with good audio for everything, step by step. So that was great. And they're keeping it up to date with everything that they drop. So you got to give them props for that. When it came to my setup, as you guys can see from these clips as we're rolling through it, the rudder mount was not meant to go on the Old Town Big Water 132, but we sure as heck made it, and it works. So anything I knock for this product on my kayak needs a bit of grace because it's not meant for this kayak. But I think that it proves the point that this is a very modular motor that could be adapted to any product on the market. So if you guys have seen the Old Town Big Water 132 or the older Predator Old Town models, they have 4 bolts that come right off the rear handle, the molded handle on the back of the boat. As you can see from these clips I'm going through, I ended up having to replace the bolts that come with them because Old Town sends these trash, like they're made of plastic bolts with their kayaks. So highly recommend, just change them to stainless steel. You'll be way happier. You can't even install like deck loops or anchor trolley wheels or anything. Even though it's got the bolt pattern, it's got the brass insert for it, the bolts they include with the boat suck. So just change them right away. So I changed those, put in stainless steel. I had to get a adapter. It's called a gudgeon. It's basically like a little metal U that bolts right to the back of the boat. Bixby sells that. Everything you need for this build was on Bixby's website. They had a foot steering kit that I picked up, which comes with your movable foot pedals, as well as the tracks that they go in, the tubing that you need to run through your boat, the Kevlar line that goes through those tubes so that you can actually tie that onto the foot steering pedals and steer it. The nice thing about my kayak is that the tubing was already installed. If I had to add the tubing, it would be kind of a pain in the butt. It's not too difficult. We ended up doing it later on in Paul's boat, where you had to drill the hole, run the line on that Crescent light tackle too. So I've done it both ways. It's not necessarily easier or harder. If anything, I would say having the tube inside adds an extra element of difficulty because you have to run this flimsy Kevlar line through that tube, and that took me a while. What I ended up doing, as you can see in this video here, so what I ended up doing is I super glued this metal brake line that I had. So I just had spare brake line wire because why not, for mountain bikes. And I super glued that to some braid, and I super glued the braid to the Kevlar line. The reason I did that is the brake line was the easiest to push through the plastic tubing, and then the braid being thin was the only thing that you could attach to the Kevlar, so the Kevlar line would actually pull through the plastic. Otherwise, if I tied the Kevlar to the brake cable, it wouldn't come through the other end of the tube. Point is, it was a pain in the butt, but we figured it out. That was the only hard part about the entire install. Everything was a piece of cake other than that. And that's by adding a rudder that this boat isn't made for and movable foot pedals that this boat also isn't made for. Sometimes you have to add spacers. We had to do that on Paul's Crescent Light Tackle 2. We actually had to trim his pedals and add spacers for his Newport motor to get installed on that. So it can be a pain in the butt, but it's something I wanted to point out. It is important to note these are all extra accessories that you would have to buy on Bixby. So you got to factor that into your cost as you do with anything else. For example, your Newport motor does not come with foot pedal. Your Torqeedo does not come with foot pedal steering. You're going to either use those fixed and steer with your rudder. I don't recommend, or you're going to get hand steering or foot steering. So you have to buy those with any motor you're getting anyways. We did find a pair of super cheap foot pedals that Paul is using for his Newport that work just fine, that you can grab on Amazon that are cheaper than anywhere else I've seen them. But I will point out Bixby has a kit with just everything in it. So if you just want it all in one, just buy that. So there's a bit of the install. Hopefully that footage was helpful for you. Again, we weren't gonna do an install video because Bixby already has a million. There would be no point to that and it would be boring. So I just wanted you to see some of the B-roll of that as I talk through things we noticed. Now, so overall, I gotta give Bixby a 9 out of 10 on riggability because they have everything you need on their website. It's reasonably priced and you can get it fast from them. And they have really good install videos for every product that they sell. So kudos to them for that. I think that's great to see. And I think more companies should focus on doing that. Real quick on looks, you can see from these videos as we walk through these things, how they look on the Old Town 106, as you can see here, which I think looks great. A lot of their mounts that they use are this like blue anodized metal look to them. And I think they look awesome. And they held up pretty dang well, nice and sturdy. They've cut out like their logo on them. Like it's just good looking stuff. And then you can see the rudder setup I got on my Old Town Big Water. I also think that this looks really good. They used to have a plastic rudder and they upgraded to this aluminum one. And I think that like that metal look to it is just so much better. It's a super clean look and super functional as well. So I really like that. So overall for looks, I'm giving this thing a 9 out of 10 as well. I think that it's a really functional look to it. It'll blend in really well with any kayak you got. And I know it's like the most important factor, but it is a factor that we have to consider. So 9 out of 10. Let's jump to output and battery life. So output is how much thrust is this motor going to provide? How fast can you get your kayak moving? I think it's important with any motor you're considering, and you should also consider how fast do I want to go? Like, do I need to be going 7-8 miles an hour? Do I need that super high thrust output motor? Or am I gonna be just kind of like trolling speed, moving along from 3 to 5 miles an hour, right? So depending on what you're dealing with, you gotta consider that. I think with the Bixby, being that you can get up to about, on average, 5 miles an hour, depending on your kayak setup, and if you're dragging a whole bunch of stuff, or weight, if it's a super heavy, like my Titan X, for example, loaded down with all the features, that Titan X is not gonna move very fast, but you could still get to around 4.5 miles an hour. I've seen people use this on Hobie Pro anglers. We would have, but we sold ours before we got it, so we didn't. But you could use this on like a Hobie Pro angler. You're gonna get up to 4.5 miles an hour. And I think that's enough for most smaller bodies of water. If you're trying to pick apart a big body of water, like up here in Michigan, we got Lake St. Clair, well, maybe that'd be frustrating, I get it. And that's where you're gonna want something that's a high output, like a Newport, a high thrust DIY, or a Torqeedo. All great options. So as you can see in these next couple of clips here, I wanna show you the speed that we got to using a little app on our phone. You can see Paul going here, and then I also tested out his kayak, and then you can see me going in my kayak as well.
Snowing, good stuff. Fifth setting. There we go. We're going into the wind right now. 6. Fifth or 6, one of the two. I mean, I'm cutting the wake here. There's another one, 6th or 7th, whatever that is. This is dope. How fast am I going? Let's see. I'm getting it's like 2.8. It's reading like 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3. The rudder's pretty responsive. Let's try one more here. Yeah, there's another one. 7 or 8 right there. Let's see. That reading. We're getting a 3, solid 3. Oh, there's like 8 right there. Yeah, we're cruising. We are cruising. there another one? There it is. We're still in the 3. For what it's worth with this app. It's not perfect. It's the best I got right now. Oh, I'm cold. All right. It's like 8 or 9. It's the 8 setting, I think. 9 setting. Let's hit it again. It's still reading 3. But I mean, I'm cutting up. I'm cutting. Wait, I am moving. Yeah, the rudder is pretty responsive. This is kind of awesome. That's the max right there. So that's probably 10 right there. So we're going into the wind. Get a little 10-mile-per-hour wind here today. It's rolling. We're going 4. We just hit 4. Now let's see. Oh yeah, 4, 5. I'm not pedaling hard. Pretty much the same steady pedal. I'm hitting 4 to 5 miles an hour. Yo, not bad. It's not bad. 4 to 5. Let's check the rudder. Not bad. You're not like, this isn't hyper speed, but I'm doing no work. And yeah, the rudder is definitely working. 4, 5. I hit 6? Just hit 6. It's like 5.5, 6. That's not safe. I can get to 6 a little easier though. I'm cutting weight. That's dope. There you go. You're probably normal speeds around 4 max, and maybe 5 or 6 if you're really hustling.
These guys are working pretty good. So you can see if I go right foot forward, I go right. If I go left foot forward, I go left. You see how it's a little like shaky on that turn. I think the main reason for that is my heel of my boot is dragging, because I mean, when you're wearing boots, they're just clunky and bigger. If I'm barefoot, it won't be that issue, I don't think. So it's not the track that's really necessarily doing that so much as it's the angle of my foot and the bulkiness of the boot getting in the way. You see, like, just look, going straight, okay, go right. You can see based on the landmarks there how quickly that works. This is a good rudder. I'll say, if anything, this is a really good rudder. So if you don't have a rudder on your boat, it's really nice to have that. It's super convenient. It gives you a lot more control out on the water. So regardless of having the motor on it, you could use this purely as a rudder, which is neat, and add the motor later if you wanted to, or on certain days use it, certain days don't. And yeah, just having the foot steering in a paddle kayak, this is the juice. So from those clips, you guys can see it gets enough speed. It does the job, and it holds up pretty dang well. Having never really used motors before this year on the water, I thought it was just an excellent accessory. It made the day a lot easier for me. I was able to troll and fish often throughout the day. I like it a lot. So I don't know if you just gotta, like, you know, burn rubber or whatever, but I think it goes fast enough. But it is not the fastest, so we do have to knock it a couple points there. So I'm gonna give that a 7.5 out of 10. I kind of expected it to be slower than it was, so I was impressed by it. So next up's battery life. You can see in this next clip here, we took this thing out on the water, did a full day for us, around 6 hours I fished this with this thing. I ran it the whole time. It was a windy day and I absolutely beat the tar. This is actually the day that I broke it, which I'll get to in just a second. So I did break this motor, and I'll tell you how it happened and what Bixby did about it in just a second. But check this out. Here's the battery life check-in throughout the day on a super windy day with this thing running pretty much the whole time and pushing hard against that current. So I had to run this at like a 5 to a 10 out of 10 speed for this. All right, you guys, so check it out. We're looking at battery life right now. So it's got 6 total bars. It's down half. So we're at 3 hours in, half the battery life remaining. I've actually been trolling like the whole time.
In 25 miles an hour wind.
In the wind, I've dragged my anchor. I've gone into the wind, so yeah, I would say battery life pretty good.
In a 13-foot boat.
In a 13, yeah. I mean, it's hauling some gear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lighter boat than average, but
Yeah.
it's still long.
I've got it loaded up though, so it's like, all right, you guys, I am off the water, and we still have two lights left. Been running this all day. It is now 3:09, and we started at 9:30, and I have not let off the gas, like not once. With all this wind, I've just been using it so that I can like stay steady. So as you can see, this thing has enough battery life to get you through a full day on the water, especially if you're not dealing with high current or high windy situations. I think on a normal day, you can run this thing 8.5 hours, no problem. I still had a couple bars left on the battery when I pulled out and went home. So battery life, I think is pretty good for the fact that this battery weighs basically nothing. This is super light. You're not going to find a lithium ion battery for, you know, like your 12, 24 volt, 36 volt for your big motors where you're going to need 50 amp hours up to 100 amp hours. You're not going to get anywhere close to this size or weight that you can see here. That said, it is proprietary, so we got to knock them a couple points on that because it kind of hamstrings the consumer. You're stuck with getting this battery. If it breaks, you can only go to Bixby. I get it. I got to knock them for that too. I hear you guys, and it makes sense. So it's something to consider. That said, if you're looking for how long is this gonna last me, it'll last you 6 to 8 hours, no problem if you use it all day. I did this on multiple trips, but that was the most abuse I gave. It was on that windy day to really put it through the tests. So overall, again, I feel it's fair to give this a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's an excellent battery as is. Being that it's proprietary, we're gonna knock it a little bit. And being that, of course, it's a smaller, lighter battery, it's not gonna be able to last you multiple days in a row. You gotta charge it every day. Charging this thing is easy. It comes with a charger, which is, you know, something most battery companies don't even include anymore for some reason. I bought multiple batteries this year and I found that out the hard way. Most companies don't even include chargers anymore. So it's something to consider, but yeah, I think it's a great battery. 7.5 out of 10. Very happy with it. Another reason for the 7.5 out of 10 is that this little magnet piece here is a pain in the butt. I would much rather there was a way to have this like fixed on. I get it's like, hey, if you fall out, it's kind of a kill switch. I wish there was a different kind of kill switch on this thing. But if that magnet moves out of place a smidge, millimeter, this thing error codes, it goes beep, 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 and it turns off. I've had days where that's been frustrating. The way we fixed it was actually kind of a surprise from this company. They just sent us this. They sell an extension cable for this. Now I know what you're thinking. If we extend the cable from the battery to the motor, you're gonna lose your power output. And that is true. You do have a percentage knock on your power output. The battery's not gonna be able to get as much power to that motor as it could with a shorter cable. That said, it's a loss of about 1% per foot. So if you go with what this is less than 6 feet, I think it's like a 4 or 5 foot extension cable, you're losing up to 5% maximum. Worth it. Because what we're able to do is by extending that cable from the motor, which normally is this long, again, about 4 or 5 feet, this length, because it has to go partially up the rudder, really only allows you to have this battery in the very back of your boat. So if the magnet slips off, you have to reach all the way back there and adjust it and fix it. That sucks. But with the extension, I was able to run the cable all the way up under the seat of my kayak, right? So right under my seat, I was able to access and fix that magnet anytime I had an issue, or pull that magnet if I just wanted to turn the motor off in case we were in a dangerous situation, going up shallow. I didn't want to damage the prop or whatever, which I did later on. So, I mean, really cool that they decided to send this to us to make sure that we knew all the options that were out there. And again, it just shows these guys really think about everything. Any problem you have, it can be solved somewhere on their site. But again, that's why I knocked it a few points and it's at 7.5 out of 10. Because that kill switch, not a big fan. I think there's got to be a better way to do that. So that brings us to durability. I told you guys I broke this thing, and I did. Here's what happened. When we were testing it out, we weren't very nice to it on purpose because that's what this is all about. So you can see here, Paul unloading the kayak and basically just dropping the motor on the ground. It's because we didn't think about just removing the motor before taking the kayak out of the truck to take it to the water. Hey, pro tip, take the motor off before you do things like that, and especially before you travel. again, I think it counts as us just like buster testing this thing and seeing if it can hold up. So we beat the tar out of it, did a whole day on the water that day. Then I did my install like the next week, took this thing out there, beat the tar out of it, unloaded and loaded the same way Paul did. Again, 10 out of 10, would not recommend. Do it the right way. Take it off before you go to the water, add it when you're at the water. And then we did a little quick walkthrough of this thing on that windy day. And while we were doing that, I had my rudder down, or I lifted it up to its stationary position and then dropped it a few times. So if you guys notice, the original motor has like this little plastic guard on the back, and it's got these pretty wide spaces there. I would recommend immediately replacing that. So that is something that you better believe is gonna get a knock on durability. They do sell, and it's pretty cheap. It only costs this much. This very fine guard that goes behind your prop. Now, again, it's gonna reduce your thrust a little bit because this is drawing water through like that to push you through. It's not a severe reduction in thrust, but it is one that you have to call out, so I'm going to. That said, that finer guard prevents rocks from getting in there. So what happened was, when my motor was sitting on the bottom of the pond, it was like just in the gravel. I think what happened is a rock got lodged in there. And then we went to use it, and this was on the long day in the wind. I was running it all day long. That happened, I damaged the prop, and then after that, it started making this sound. All right, let's top out this motor. Here we go. It's vibrating pretty hard. Probably the wind. Hi.
I've been on the Peloton, it's really showing.
So it got really loud. I didn't lose any power, and everything else operated fine. So it still operated, it was just very loud. And I mean, if you're trying to sneak up on fishies, that's not the greatest thing. It was really windy and kind of loud already outside, so it didn't really matter that day, but like on a calmer day, you're not gonna wanna roll up on a spot going, you know? So what happened is I let the Bixby team know, said, hey guys, I think I broke it. And they said, wow, just kidding. They said, oh no. And they just offered to take a look at it. So they sent me a prepaid label, dropped it off at a UPS drop point, which for me is a tackle shop. So I bought some tackle while I was there, shipped the motor out. They took a look at it. They fixed the prop. They actually fully replaced the motor for me. And they said they would do this for, I have it in an email. They said they would do this for any customer, not just me. I think it's important because sometimes in customer service, companies only take care of influencers or people that make videos on the internet like we do. That's not cool. Like you need to take care of your customers too. So I made sure to ask them like, hey, is this like part of a warranty? Would you guys hook people up if this happened? They said yes. So I want to be clear with that there. So that was pretty cool. And they actually sent me the little fine weed guard there that you see as well with the new motor. So I replaced it immediately. I highly recommend that to anybody. Put that weed guard on there. You're going to be much happier overall because you want this thing to last, right? I mean, it's an investment like anything else. I'll also point out though that the prop is replaceable and you can just buy it on their website and it's not that expensive. So you got optional replacement props and different parts or components of the motor there, the hardware, all that stuff you can replace other than the actual big old motor vessel itself. This piece, that's the expensive part. You can do pretty much everything else on their website right there, super easy. So overall durability though, because you know, one rock basically chipped my propeller, that ain't great. With the weed guard, I think you can prevent that from happening. So everybody, if you get this thing, just get that. Unless you don't like fish shallow areas or have rocks in your water, but I'm pretty sure there will be. So overall, I think I got to give that another 7 out of 10. It's not the most durable product out there, but let's be real, props aren't durable. They break on every type of motor. So I don't see any motor here really getting much higher than that, period. So 7 out of 10 to me, pretty good on durability. I think another important category for any motor we look at is going to be weight. How much does the overall setup weigh? This is where all the weight is. We're looking at around 10 pounds. This thing weighs next to nothing, like your battery for most other motor setups, let alone the actual big ol' honking motor itself. So you're looking at much higher weights added to your boat, even if it's like this. This motor right here, this is metal right here. This thing is heavy as hell. This right here alone, that's not including a battery, way heavier than the two of those components together, period. So while this motor trades points for its weight to thrust, right? You're not getting as much thrust, as much power out of this, or as much longevity of battery life either, because you're not using a huge battery. It definitely wins in the weight category. So I got to give it a 9 out of 10 in terms of weight. It weighs next to nothing, and it's very compact. Most people like throw this stuff into a duffel bag and then they just like take it to the water, throw it on their SUP or their kayak. Very easy, very transportable as well. That's actually a great segue to another bonus point. So we started out with like 7 categories, now we have 9. So another bonus point I want to throw you guys with this is transportation. When it comes to motors, how easy are they to transport? You've got to be able to take it off. Now, cool thing about stuff like the NK180 Pro from Newport is now you can detach the motor, just pop it off, take it off, unplug it, and then throw it in the back of your vehicle. So they're getting more transportable, more easy to transport, but they are heavier. So it's something to keep in mind. Like, it's a very large motor, it takes up a lot of space. You gotta lay it somewhere carefully in your vehicle as you transport your kayak or flotation vessel to the water. The Bixby takes up this much space and also comes off very easily. So I can't responsibly knock very many points for that. It takes up no space at all. Again, I mentioned a lot of people just get a duffel bag, throw this thing in there, go to the water, good to go. So I'd recommend that. Maybe like an old tackle bag, old tackle backpack. I bet I could fit this in my my lose bag here. So I could just go like, hey, I want to take my Bixby with me. Oh, I wonder if this rudder will fit. It's probably too tall. A little bit too tall. Throw my cable in here. And then I just do this. Oh, actually. Okay, the mock bag's not small. I get it. But like, I can just throw this in a backpack and it would probably fit into something smaller than that, like a duffel bag again, like longer type of bag that would work. So there you go. I mean, transportation, super easy. I'd give that a 9 out of 10, no problem. I just came up with another category. We're like coming up on the fly. I think we're gonna use these same 10 categories for every motor that we review. Hopefully we get a bunch more that we can review. We have the Newports at least, so we're gonna test out a couple more with this. But I would say another really important category is gonna be sound. How loud is this thing? Because some motors, they get really loud. I would say this, for the Bixby, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's rather quiet. The only issue I had is this sound, again, I'll bring back for you. Loud whining sound because I chipped the prop. Now that that is fixed, you can see from the original trip that Paul took out with his boat.
3 or 4 miles an hour into the wind.
Pretty quiet. So overall, it's a pretty quiet motor. You're still able to roll up on spots and be all stealthy like. You can cut the motor off as you roll into it. No big deal. I like to switch to paddling as I get closer. I think it's just easy to go from this end of the lake to this end of the lake with a motor versus with a paddle. So it's something to keep in mind. So that brings us to our final category, which would be customer service. Overall, customer service with the Bixby, I would say, has been a pleasure for us. Again, I wanted to see like, okay, is it just because you sent us a motor and you want to be nice to us so we say nice things about you on the internet? And maybe there's an element of that, and I don't think that can be helped. That said, I was like very clear with them, hey, if this happened with a customer, would you take care of them? Show me an example. What would you guys do? What's the policy here? And the policy is they're here to make you happy. They want to take care of you. They have warranties on these products. So they do have a 1-year warranty on the motor, 1-year warranty on the battery. If it's something that needs repair or replacement, they'll print you a label. So it's like prepaid label. You can send it to them. They take care of you with that. It is only a year. So that's like the point that we're knocking them for, is their warranty should be, I mean, I would prefer it to be a little bit longer. You pay $12.99, $15.99 for something. You want to have a warranty that's going to cover it for as long as possible. But let's be real. You buy a truck for 40 grand, you have a 5-year warranty. So it's not like they extend on scale of cost. It just is what it is. So I would say overall though, dealing with their customer service has been a pleasant experience. And I hope that anybody who picks one up in the future has that pleasant experience too. Don't hold it against me if you don't, because I'm not Bixby. I'm just saying, here's my experience and what I asked about, and I thought it was pretty good. So I'd give them a 9 out of 10 on that because I have dealt with some pretty horrible customer services. Even as a person who makes videos on the internet that they're sending the product to do a review of, I've had some bad customer service experiences there. So this one was really great. All right, so that's it. Overall, I got some math to do. All right, so hopefully I didn't miss any points there, but overall, this is a score that I'm giving Bixby, the K1 outboard kit, at least the one that we have, 82.5. So overall, got a few knocks on a few things, because when you do a review, you should really like thoroughly put something to the test and be as honest as humanly possible with it. We believe, hopefully you guys do too. But overall at 82.5, I think that that's a really high rating. You gotta keep in mind, kind of barely knocked this thing on each of those categories. I had quite a few categories where I would happily give this thing a 9 out of 10. And I think that you guys would have a good time with this motor. Again, if you've got a SUP, lighter kayak, something where you're looking for just a super light, sleek, easy to rig setup that's modular and can go from boat to boat or boat to SUP or whatever, I think Bixby's a great option. Paul agrees with me. We've talked about it on podcasts. We had Bixby on our podcast and we grilled them on that. We talked about the things we didn't like and they talked about things they're gonna do about it. So it's pretty cool. It's a company that listens, adapts, changes, improves. That's what we want to see in the industry. And I definitely think that Bixby hits that mark. I know this was a long review. There's a lot of things to cover and hopefully it was thorough enough for you guys. As you saw in the videos, we really did use this thing a whole ton on the water. We had a great time with it and it is a motor that I would recommend to you if you're looking for something that's kind of like all-encompassing, all-in-one, that you don't have to do really anything for yourself. You can just slap it on a boat and be happy with it. This might be a good fit for you. Hopefully you guys liked the video and it was helpful for you. Be sure to subscribe, smash a like if it was, and we'll catch you guys on the next video. Bye.